Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Your Weekly TheraTea Podcast. My name is Tal Williams, or Mr. Williams. I am a social worker and a teacher. And over here we have...
I'm Anne-Marie DePietro, and I am this week, again, a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
And we have a guest with us.
We do.
Do you want to introduce our guest?
Yes. Our guest over here is Seth Lehman. He is one of my patients, and he has a really cool story that he has volunteered to share with us and given consent for me to talk about.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Good, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You're in school.
Yes.
And you graduate in
May.
Excited?
Yes.
What are you going to school for?
I'm going to school for clinical social work at Bryn Mawr.
We love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So before we start, I feel like there's a very important question I have to ask both of you.
What is it?
And like, I know that you both are going to know about it, and if you don't, then make it up. But I need to know, what do you think happened to Kate Middleton?
I mean, I'm going to go with Jason's hypothesis about her being with Kate Chastain on Traitors.
Season 2.
Yeah.
Do you know about this, Seth?
I don't.
Okay. Well, let me tell you. So, you know who Kate Middleton is?
I've heard.
Okay. She's the Princess of Wales.
Mm-hmm.
She's married to Prince William. Okay? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories popping up about her because she was went to the hospital to get abdominal surgery. What kind? We don't know. They didn't tell us. They're not telling us. There's abdominal surgery. Same day, though, King Charles, her father-in-law, her king-in-law, he goes too. And they're like, oh, he has an enlarged prostate. And then we find out later on it's cancer, which is terrible, right? But they went on the same day, okay, which is suspicious, strange. Why? Well, we haven't seen her since. Now, they said when she went in that they were not going to give any updates unless something drastic happened, and we would not see Kate until Easter. But people are like, that's strange. Yeah.
Why Easter? She rises from the tomb?
Apparently. It's and Kate, so people have been like, where is she? They're not for sure that this is a real story.
Yeah.
Some people might think that maybe she had to give a kidney to the king, long live the king, here you go. So they took a really grainy paparazzi photo of her in a car with her mother, and they're see Kate's doing fine, and people are like, that's not real, that can't be. So then this week for the UK's Mother's Day, they posted a photo of her and her kids. Well, the AP News, which is the most reliable news source, they're right dab in the middle, they don't have any political sides, pulled the photo and said this photo has been edited too much, that we can't say it's real.
Wow.
Oh.
So people were like, where is she? So then they had Kate tweet or something sorry, I've been playing with editing and Photoshop like most people do, and it was just a bad photo, and so we blah, 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 blah. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. So theories are she got bangs and she's waiting for them to grow back out. She got cosmetic surgery.
Okay.
Some people think she's on The Masked Singer, which, I mean,
wow,
could make sense. And then some people are a little darker. They're like, she had to harvest her organs for the king or she's dead. And I'm like, you know what? Who knows at this point?
Yeah, she's probably not dead.
Probably
the
not.
organ harvest makes sense.
Yeah. Listen, it's 2024.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put anything past it.
Yeah.
But I'm
No,
nosy,
for sure.
so I need you to read up on it, get back to us, tell us what you think. Because
I have a lot of conspiracies and ideas
a lot
to
to
read
catch
up
up
on.
on.
Go to the Reddit. I'm sure that there's going to be a
That'll always
plethora of information.
Yeah, that'll give me great
Mm-hmm.
information.
Yeah. Spiral down there.
Yeah. The rabbit hole.
So now that we've gotten past probably the most important stuff
Yes.
we'll talk about today, you agreed to come and chat with us.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you feeling with from what I heard, because I don't really, I haven't met you until today.
Yeah.
You've made quite a big jump from point A to point B and getting ready to graduate and
Maybe we should start at the beginning. What do you think?
Yeah, I can always just start from sort of how we met, and I'll go from there.
Yeah, tell us, and then I'll add in.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, growing up, I always had some mental health issues, and I always sort of felt off in a lot of ways. But I had a great childhood. I got everything I wanted. I was an only child, and to some extent that may have accelerated or not. I don't know. But I had a great childhood, and I was very loved, and I had a lot of like friends and the whole 9 yards, and played hockey and skateboarded and played lacrosse. But I want to say around 12 started, 10 to 12 started experiencing panic attacks.
Okay. How did those look to you at 10 or 12? At
10 or 12, it was just like I started with like a lot of desensitization. So like they didn't start really bad. Yeah. They started like out of body experiences. Like, what is happening right now? Yeah. They started like, the shortness of breath. Like, I don't know what's going on. I felt like I wasn't in my body. Yeah. And that always just was bizarre. And my mom knew what they were because she has OCD and panic as well. So it was comforting to know.
Somewhat new.
Like right away.
On. Yeah.
Like, you're having terrifying. A panic attack probably. Yeah. And I was like, that still doesn't help, but at least you know what's going on.
Right. So
the start of that, I mean, running down a couple more years, I went to high school, and I was pretty straight and narrow growing up. I mean, maybe had a few cigarettes growing up. I know.
No.
The DARE officer is weeping. Did you do DARE?
I was always like, I'll never do other shit.
Did you do DARE? Tell us, like,
DARE,
really into DARE.
I did jump rope for heart.
You know what? That's why. Roping. Okay, so if you would have done DARE, that's why you try to SIG. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I had to figure it out. But no, I mean, growing up, then high school, I found drinking, and I also started having more severe panic attacks. And then I started realizing that since I was about 6, the stuff I've been doing, which were rituals and OCD, weren't normal. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really know I had OCD for so long. So I realized, since I was 5 or 6, I just remember everything I did always came with a ritual, an intrusive thought, and then a fear. And so my whole life I grew up afraid. And I think that has a lot to do with my alcoholism, and I'm an alcoholic, by the way. And that has a lot to do with rituals. And so I remember growing up, it was always even numbers. Yeah. It started just simple, like the panic attacks are very simple, like even numbers, tapping, touching, and then it progressed really quickly into like, in high school, it was like I would have to walk in and out of the room with a good thought in my head. I would have an intrusive thought of like me getting cancer, Alzheimer's, brain tumors, all the craziest diseases, Parkinson's, and just
at a young age you were getting it, or like you were about like in the future.
Either or, like it started out like if I didn't do this, that's gonna happen. Yeah. And that's how a lot of like OCD is, from 100%. What I've heard, and at that age, like from what I heard, and then it became debilitating. So like before I started drinking, so around 14, 13, it was like I'd be touching stuff and I would notice 20, 30 minutes went by, or I was so afraid I was gonna die or get one of these diseases that I couldn't speak. Wow. Like I remember when, we met, I couldn't say cancer.
I was literally just going to say that.
Yeah, I used to not be able to say other people's names or my own name.
During the evaluation, I was like, well, what are you afraid of? And he was like, I can't.
You couldn't even say it.
I couldn't even say. And then you worried about other people getting cancer, right?
Yeah, and dying.
He couldn't say the names. I think you wrote it down.
Yeah, I had to write it down because I had no other way.
He literally didn't say it out loud for a long time.
The first year, the first year of like my
treatment,
I did not say it. but yeah, it looked like, God, it looked like you always love the story about, like, I remember I had to rip things out of my house sometimes, or I was driving one time down the road and I had a thought, an intrusive thought came in, which is an unwanted thought about dying or getting a disease or something, and I hit a curb by accident while I was driving, and I drove around and had to touch the curb with my car 4 times. And this is around Westchester. Like, it took an hour to do the ritual right, like, and I'm thinking in my head, so I'm barely looking at the road, like, I mean, that's just how debilitating it got, to the point where, like, I'm just gonna not leave my house because that's miserable to try to talk to somebody. And I mean, I remember, like, the my vocals and my Tourette's came out, and then I would ritualize my tics.
Right.
And when we met, it was like I would have to repeat names, or like I'd be like Emery, like over and over. So I didn't, and then I found alcohol, which did wonders until it didn't. But at first it was great. I mean, when I started drinking in high school, it was like a buddy of mine's wife explains it perfectly. Like, you're pouring rain driving down the road, and then you hit the tunnel, and it's just like that.
Yeah.
And, like, when I drank, that's what it was. It was like that, the Tourette's, the panic, the fears that I had, and like, on top of the mental health, like, I was scared of everything. I was scared of what you thought of me, of how I came off, of how well I was doing, or whatever. I was just scared of everything. And on top of that, like, it just shut that shut down for while I was drinking. And that was the beginning of the story.
I still remember it was very shortly after I started my private practice, so in 2015. So it's been 9 years now that we've been working together. And so he was one of my first private practice patients. I had been practicing for like 5 years at the time, but my colleague and I had started a private practice, and we were sharing an office in the back of this, like, group of therapists that was a closet. They converted a closet. I'm not kidding. You can attest. They converted a closet. They still had the water jugs. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They stored the water jugs in there still. And there were like these coffee stains on the walls. I still don't know how they got there. It was like when my colleague and I would bring people in, we were like, we're really sorry.
Ignore the coffee stains.
Yeah. So it was in like the back corner of this office that was sort of like a U shape. So Seth was in the waiting room, like at the front of the U, and I'm like back in the corner. And I could hear like someone with tics like in my office. Like, he was repeating vocal tics over and over. And I like remember that so distinctly because I came out from around the corner to get him, and he was like curled up in the fetal position. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, literally.
It was just like a mess.
How old were you?
This was 2015. When we met, I was 18.
Wow. So you've been dealing with this for 8 years now?
Oh,
9.
God.
I mean, 9 since I've been treating him.
I've been dealing since I was...
No, I mean, at the time when you came to see her.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
8 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time for a kid to be dealing with.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, his was so severe that... Were you on meds at the time?
I was on and off different types of, like, SSRIs. And then, no, not at the time. I wasn't on anything.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Alcohol.
So our plan was obviously to do meds, but with panic and OCD, like, the best treatment is exposure and response prevention therapy. And Seth's was so severe that I was like, he needs someone who's like expertise is in this. So luckily my colleague that I shared the dirty office with is an expert in panic and OCD. However, he does not do substance use. Like, he was very fervently like, never refer me a substance use client. I will say no. I won't do it. I can't do it. I'm not doing it. So I remember Seth leaving, and I was like, I texted him and I was like, I need to call you right now. Like, we have to talk about a case. And in my head, I was like, I need to manipulate him somehow into seeing this kid. Like, this kid needs him if like anyone else has ever needed. So I was like, I'm really gonna need you to see this kid. I swear he's like the worst I've ever seen with OCD and Tourette's. You were the only, I had to play to his ego. You were the only one that could ever help. I mean, he may have just been in rehab, but it was really short.
Right.
And he's not an alcoholic, and it's gonna be fine. It has nothing to do with that. And he was like, Emery, really? No. And I was like, please just meet him. When you meet him, like, you will not be able to say no. And I think that's what happened. You guys met and he was like, I'm going to do this. And now he tells Seth's story to like literally every patient he ever sees.
Yeah. Well, so I was in rehab before me and Emery met, because another gentleman in that office who I'm seeing recommended I go there. And that sort of started my whole sobriety journey. But when I came back, I remember seeing him, and he tells a story like he thought I had autism.
Okay.
And he thought I was gonna like self-combust. He says,
"Wow, yeah."
Because like with autism, like I guess I had a lot of the like I couldn't socially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The OCD was so bad I looked like I couldn't socially be there.
You couldn't socially
and I couldn't
be there.
socially be there.
Right.
And he's so fascinated by it, and so am I now. But like we found out like the Tourette's even wasn't as bad as the OCD, and that journey started with basically like exposure therapy and cognitive desensitization. So like almost phobia training. And
do you remember when you had to write that like paragraph about you getting cancer, and then you recorded it, and then you had to listen to the recording?
It was terrifying. It was like that was towards the later treatment. Was like, I remember, because I couldn't say cancer or any of these words for such a long time. He would have me just repeat it for 5 minutes straight until my anxiety declined, and or not 5 minutes, maybe it was like an hour.
Oh my God.
We'd walk around Westchester touching random things and having an intrusive thought and still walking away. And so it was a lot of doing what I didn't want to do to get better. And that's sort of what led me. That's something now that like has helped me a lot in recovery and other things. But like I'll get to that. But yeah, like the he had me write that. And then few months later, like before we discontinued, which was like a break point for my OCD, was he had me imagine I had MS and was sitting with it. And I think he had me at my gym at the time, at CrossFit gym. And he was like, just imagine being there and like, what would you tell yourself? And, I think I said something, like it was in a meditative state, so we meditated. And then I was like, dude, it's not worth it. Like I would tell myself, I was like, you're going to die anyways of this thing.
Yeah.
That's like what broke it out. You were like... You
spent years of your life trying to stop it from happening, and you're here with it anyways dying.
Yeah.
And like he started tearing up because he knew, I think, when I said it, that was a point I first realized, the first acceptance of like, none of the rituals I'm doing are doing anything to control the outside world.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of like this whole thing, and it didn't get better right then. In fact, my life got a lot worse.
Really?
Yeah, because of drinking, right? So my OCD had its ebbs and flows, and my Tourette's had its ebbs and flows, but what happened was I had this other thing that wasn't being treated either.
Yeah. And
so I needed both of them to be treated, and what happened was I met a girl. We fell in love, the whole 9 yards, and I transferred from, I went to Delaware County Community College, graduated there, to Westchester, and long story short, we were dated for about 3.5 years.
Wow, okay.
And then I was about to fail out of Westchester, and I went back to this gentleman that introduced me to Anne-Marie, and he goes, I think you should try AA, like here's the deal. On this night, Thursday night, and go to this thing. And I was like, okay. And so that, I went to that, and that was my introduction with the Tulsa program and AA and stuff like that. And what happened was I tried it. I did it. And I did it for 2 weeks, graduated, then relapsed.
Okay.
Did it for 7 months. You know, but I was only doing like I always share the stories, like I was still in that relationship, but I was so, like I was going to meetings and I was sort of showing up, but I like wanted to die every day or wanted to drink every single day. And so what I said was, I was like, this isn't working. This thing doesn't work. These people are insane and this isn't working. Like I can do this. And you hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And it usually doesn't. It usually turns out the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what happens was I tried drinking again, and the same thing happened. It just was. It was like it wasn't working anymore. Like no matter how much I drank, and you know, when I was drinking, it was I never drank. I always explain I never drank to black out. It was I drank to be under that bridge as often as I could, to be in that state of not anxiety, depression, panic, fear. So I drank 30, 40 beers a day, but it was not like let's get like blacked out. It was like I want to not
like even
feel
keel kind of. And I think that's such the frustrating thing. You had talked about early on that the therapist initially was like, oh, I don't see people who have substance use. Yeah. And I was the exact same way when I was in my graduate program, and so the program I was in was like, awesome, your first thing will be substance use. And I'm like, oh my God. And it took me so long I was in school. I recognized that substance use is a disease. It's not like people choose it, right?
Yeah.
But I think that what I didn't understand until I was talking to groups of people was that they use it because it fucking works. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it works and that's the best option, right? We know it's not the best option, but it's so amazing and it's so like disheartening to hear people be like, I used it because it worked. But to also know that it's working for this one thing, but it's detrimental to so much.
Yeah,
more.
And that's the best thing I've heard is like it works until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like when I was in that first 7 months before I relapsed again.
Yeah.
I got my God taken from me, and it wasn't replaced by anything better. So what am I going to do? Is return to the only thing I know that's going to work, which is alcohol.
Yep.
And so that's what I did, and that's why I relapsed after 7 months. And I thought it was everything else but what the truth was, which was me and my actions. And so what happened was I was like, I only relapsed for 2 weeks. And it was bad enough to just be like, oh my God, I need to go back. The girl that I thought, we thought we were going to do life together ended up leaving me. Mm-hmm. And I got a new sponsor. And like the beautiful thing about that girl leaving was like it was the first time in my life I thought I didn't get what I want to some extent, like under my control. Yeah. And it's a little confusing, like I guess the way I worded it, but for me it was like the book talks about like if you think you're not an alcoholic, go try drinking at your nearest bar. Yeah. And I tried that, and I used that as an excuse very often because I didn't want to accept it. And what the breakup did was it allowed me to feel the sense of like completely, this is out of my control. Yeah. No matter how much I want this person back, it's not going to happen. Yeah. And so I had two options, were to use again, kill myself, or try this thing that I haven't technically tried yet. And so thankfully I had people in my life that like gave me that option to try this. Yeah. And that started this beautiful deal with like, for me, recovery was the solution to my mental health to some extent. Mm-hmm. It was that missing piece. Yeah. And it was the missing piece because the disorders I had too were all surrounded about this God complex or trying to control things I can't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my sponsor and a few of my friends helped me early on. Like I had to intellectualize everything. Mm-hmm. And like I had to understand, well, these people, like they talk about God too much, or what does that mean, or how does this work for them, or what is this, my whole life was like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it made me, I didn't realize, but it's exhausting to live that way. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was when the breakup happened and my new sponsor, I just was like, why is this happening? If there's like a why, why? And he said to me, he's like, Seth, it wouldn't make a difference if you did know. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where it was like, oh shit, another thing was like the best part about it is I was a child.
Yeah.
Like this whole time because of my drinking and my mental health, like I was afraid to do dishes or do laundry. Like I had to touch it 85,000 times.
Yeah.
So I used that as an excuse too. So like I had a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of laziness and
Yeah.
a little bit of like I actually don't want to touch it
Yeah.
800 times. And what like recovery had to teach me was like regardless of how I'm feeling, regardless if I want to, I do it anyways.
Yeah.
And like the best part about today is like I get to show up in my life regardless of how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
It's like a happy, sad, angry, miserable. I get to do the things I don't want to do that benefit me, which is like go to meetings, like show up for my family sometimes. I show up in relationships where I feel like I'm not good at, or show up at a job that I don't feel like doing sometimes. And those are the things that keep me like locked in and is like the actions. It's like I can't control anything but my own attitudes and behaviors, and sometimes I can barely control that.
Right.
And but that goes to show is like it offered me a way to get out of that self, and like what OCD I think is, and like Tourette's and panic is a super like just zoomed in version of like I'm in my head. I'll focus on self.
Yeah.
And so that stuff like it. I mean, it lights me up. It gets me fired up because it's like alcohol was replaced by something better.
Yeah.
And I never thought that was possible, and I didn't believe it. And in turn, it helped things like that I never thought would help my other stuff, like the depression and OCD and anxiety. And I get to see my part, and like those are all the things those are the only reasons like I think I am where I am today is like I had to treat both. And it came with so many beautiful things. It came with a lot of suffering. Like I had to suffer a lot to get to where I was. Like, I mean, starting with you, I was suffering with mental health. It's the only thing I could see. Yeah. And then after that kind of got better, I started suffering with this substance use. And then I started suffering losing someone I thought I was going to be with. And then I started suffering because I wasn't getting what I wanted, or life wasn't going the way I thought it was going to go.
Right.
But like suffering isn't in vain, and I was taught that too, and I was taught that good stuff happens from pain if I do the things I don't want to do, kind of, and
put the work in.
And for the first time in my life, it was like, you know, I love music, I love CrossFit, I do stuff like that now. But like my whole life, I thought I was gonna be given everything. Like I was gonna be given this career. I deserved it. And like AA and therapy and all these things have helped me show that like if I don't do anything, nothing's gonna happen.
Right.
I have to put action in. And action has been like everything. Like if I don't feel right, if I'm not motivated, action beats motivation.
Right.
I just have to say, it is so wild, like sitting here listening to you talk, and you haven't had one tic.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when we used to be like, oh, you've only had like 10 in this appointment.
In the past 30 minutes.
Right. And I mean, before it was every sentence that you said. It was like, but how do you describe the tics? It was like your voice had to go up.
Like,
right?
Like a grunt.
Yeah.
Or repeating a word, or like this, or a respiratory tic. Or, you know, I'm sure like watching the video, some will be seen.
There's a little like, but it's nothing that's been. I feel like if I were having a conversation with you, you know, like I will like do the jitters constantly. I feel like it's nothing that I would have been like, oh, what was that? You know what I mean? Where some clients with tics that, you know, it's a little bit more apparent, and then we discuss it. But
I mean, it looked painful.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It was like, like I'm sitting here like getting emotional. Like, this is so crazy to like be sitting here 9 years later and hearing you like talk like this.
It is weird. I mean, I forget a lot of the time where I was.
Do you want to talk about the medicine a little?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, what was your experience? How
So my
did you feel about it?
experience with medicine has always been frustrating. Before we met, it was like, here's an SSRI, good luck. And I'm like, what? This isn't working.
Right.
It's not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I saw a guy that gave me like antipsychotics on top of like bipolar medication to try to boost the antipsychotic and the SSRI. I'm like, this just makes me feel really insane. Like, not like that I'm taking it, but actually I don't feel like, I feel like really weird right now. Yeah. And the alcohols probably didn't help it, but he doesn't have to know that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so when me and Anne-Marie met, we did the swab because I told you that I've tried everything, right?
Yeah.
I think that was what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, we have this cool new thing that you swab your mouth and it does your DNA and it tells you what medicines work and if there's any abnormalities that comes up. And so we did it. It came back with this huge sheet and I was like, what is this? The hell is that?
Uh-huh.
And you went over it to me. And it was actually very straightforward. It was like green means good, red no, yellow is maybe. And I was like, oh, I can kind of, that's pretty okay.
I can grasp the stoplight method, you know.
They made it pretty simple.
Yeah.
And what happened was we found out that I had like I'm a butcher, but like it was a maladaptive synaptic gap. So
it's
something
called
like
an
that.
SLC6A4 mutation where you make less serotonin transporters. So in your synaptic cleft where the serotonin's supposed to be, SSRIs that you had been on, the way they work is like binding to those serotonin transporters. So if you think of the serotonin transporter like a vacuum, they like suck up serotonin from the synapse on this like assembly line, say. So we want serotonin to stay in the synapse. So SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, bind to that vacuum so it stays there. But Seth makes less vacuums. So if you think about it, if you have 10 vacuums that are being blocked, but Seth only has 3 that are being blocked, how much more serotonin is he really keeping in the synapse? So for that reason, non-SSRIs are more effective or effective when others aren't because they're working on different mechanisms to enhance.
I totally understood all of that.
Did you really not?
Until you got to the vacuums, I was like, yes, SS and got it. Vacuums, Orville, Shark, Dyson, all the vacuums. I get that. Mm-hmm. But once towards the end, I that makes more sense now. Yeah.
Back to just green, yellow, red. It's fine.
I was gonna say I can grasp green, yellow, red.
Mm-hmm.
The synopsis of the Hootie and the Mana, and I was like, this got very Bill Nye very quickly.
Yeah, I always remember the vacuums. That's what I say. I say there's something she told me about the vacuums. They were like,
my head isn't cleaning the way it should.
Yeah. The vacuums aren't working quite right, and so the SSRIs wouldn't work that well, and that's what I told people, and they were like, that sounds interesting, and I was like, yeah, go do it, it's pretty cool.
You should probably go do that.
Yeah, because it skipped the whole like, here, try this for 6 weeks, and then
maybe we'll see if it works.
There's 5 types of SSRIs, so that's 7 years later, and maybe you'll have medicine.
Plus all the combinations of different drugs they did with it,
which was miserable too.
And I think that like also keeps people bonded to the substance that they're using, right? Because if they're waiting 7 weeks to find out if medicine works, it doesn't work. That's really frustrating. Yes. But I'm gonna just go back to this real quick because this is working. It perpetuates this idea of like, because I get it. It is so frustrating to continually try medication that's just not working, and then it has you like lose faith that maybe it's me, maybe I'm broken, maybe there's something wrong with me, but it's like no,
or lose faith in psychiatry in general. Like, I'm sure you weren't thrilled about coming to see me.
No, and you knew like I was terrified of taking medication. It's a scary thing for a lot of people.
100%.
And especially for me, like my panic attack was like, I'm gonna have a allergic reaction and die. And then I ritualized before I even took the medication. And then for Tourette's, you put me on Intuniv, which I think is a child's heart medication, right? Like blood pressure?
It can be used for blood pressure for anyone, but it's used for ADHD now too.
Oh, okay,
as
cool.
Intuniv. But we use it for tics and ADHD, and I usually use that in my kids with autism who tend to get like overstimulated by stimulants, but it's been shown to be really effective, especially in high doses for Tourette's.
Yeah, and so I think, you know, that those two have been what I've been using for those two, along with your colleagues' thorough help.
Yeah.
Seriously though, it had to. I think OCD has to be done with action as well.
Do you remember?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you remember that period of time where you kind of got like burnout treatment wise, and like he had to bring you back in and be like, you need to do the work again?
Yeah. I didn't see him for like a few months.
Yeah.
And I was like, stuff's getting bad. He's like, really? No shit?
Yeah.
Wow, that's why.
Yeah.
I think as you were talking about it, my eye was just like, because exposure therapy is great, right?
Yeah.
It's such a scary thing because it's, as a clinician, you're like, how much do I push? So you really have to know your client. You have to do work before you start the exposure therapy, right? But it's like, how much do I push? Can I push this much? But specifically with OCD, a lot of times if there's not a action, right, just medication or whatever, like there's so much that then it can transfer to something else or can go to this. So they're doing those
he could have never done it with
hands-on.
just medicine.
Yeah, it's
the
never.
layers, onion. It's an onion
it
beyond
is.
an onion beyond an
Yeah.
onion. Like I kept remembering, like, okay, well, I can say cancer
Yeah.
now, but now I think this, and then
Yeah.
now I figured
It
that.
jumps.
And I always explain it like the elevator scenario. Like if you have a phobia of elevators,
yeah.
you're not just gonna go to an elevator and get on it, and that's how you're exposed to it. You're gonna start with saying the word elevator,
Right, 100%.
and then you're gonna realize that's pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna look at a picture of an elevator.
Yeah.
And then that's okay, and then I'm gonna maybe imagine myself getting on
Right.
an elevator, and then maybe that's and just until I finally get to the point where like I'm gonna stand near the elevator,
Right. I'm going to
and
touch
then
the button.
I'm gonna touch the button, and then I can get on and get off, and then I
Yeah.
can get on, and
Yeah.
there's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
But you have to start.
Yeah.
And again, like the treatment there sucked, but it worked.
Yeah.
And so like it comes back to like my whole deal with like the action.
Right. Well, what you
works.
just said with the elevator, like a lot of people don't do exposure therapy properly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're saying, like, I'm afraid of elevators, and the therapist is like, okay, I'm going to have you get on the elevator.
Yeah.
And so, say you even go with the client to get on the elevator, you re-traumatize them to the point where
100%.
they want to avoid it even more than they did before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
I was like, Seth, say you're going to get cancer, like, that would not
it's
have...
too fast.
Yeah.
Well, and it just kind of puts us back in that, like, when you're going too far too fast, or you know, we're heightening the it's just too much. Like we can't. But yeah, no, I agree. There's definitely like a wrong way of doing exposure therapy, and I think that there's things like if there was an emergency situation where like you heard sirens and all this stuff, like if the worry is that I was at my house and someone drowned, I'm scared to get in a pool, then some of those things is like, you know, let's listen to the sound of a siren going off. Let's, you know, draw a bathtub and then kind of slowly get to that. I think sometimes when we hear exposure therapy, it's just like, and you just kind of throw them at the situation and let's cross our fingers and hope for the best.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was years that you did that.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
I mean, it was like a workout regimen. I mean, I did it 3 days a week or 2 days, 3 days a week for 2 years, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
And
you
then
really
I
put
went to a
the work
week.
in.
Yeah.
When did you decide along this whole process that you wanted to go into therapy?
Like become a therapist.
Was it when you met me?
Yeah. You can put that on
It's like
there.
100%. You can put that on there if you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take credit,
I
it's
think it was
fine.
when I finally felt a little bit of peace from my OCD, and I also found I always thought the brain was super cool. Like growing up, even before treatment. So I always was like, the brain's a weird, interesting thing. So I was always fascinated by the brain, but I didn't know that like I would ever get into therapy. And then when I met with your colleague, and I was like, I didn't even know this was possible. This is way cooler than just like sitting across from someone and talking to them. And then I realized that had a lot more a lot more to it than it does, because that's now what I do, sort of, is more of the talking style, or like I love CBT, and I love like psychodrama. I'm starting to do training for, and like there's just so much, and I think through recovery too, I actually got a little discouraged with it. I got scared.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, just go to a meeting and you're probably going to be fine. And to be honest, I truly believe that if substance abuse is the main thing, do the thing that works, which is that, on top of, like, if you need extra help, do it. And so I got nervous. I was like, how am I going to help people if, like, if I know that thing works and has worked for years and years and years, until I found that there's a lot of other very cool things you can do, like with trauma, or going back to like my roots of like loving OCD, and like remembering that there's more than just, like management therapy.
Oh,
like
for sure.
Like trying to get people to do those things.
Yeah. Therapy is very much like medication. There's very much different types of therapy. And I think that when we don't recognize that there's different avenues and theories and such, like, it's finding one that works best for the person.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my journey with it has been like up and down, which was interesting. Like I went to, I knew I wanted to talk to people. I love this field.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of like, well, I'm not going to be good at this, or like.
Well, you didn't even think you were going to get into Westchester, remember? When you were getting your associates?
Definitely not. No, definitely not at all. God, I mean, if I get a little dark, my mom always said, like, if he just makes it to 24, like, he'll be okay. And I tried starting sober at 24, and I always tell that's like a really weird like coincidence, but like I didn't think I was gonna be an adult.
Yeah.
And by that, like, I didn't see anything past 24 either. Like, I didn't see myself being. I mean, if you had told me this 2 years ago, I'd be like, you're literally insane. Like I'm sitting in your office and like a future person comes in, like, by the way, in 2 years you're gonna be, or in a few years you're gonna be sitting with her in a podcast. I'd be like, no, dude, like I can barely talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting ready to graduate.
Yeah. I can't drink. Like, you're telling me I'm not drinking either? That's crazy.
And then I'm helping other people.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Like I didn't think any of it at all.
Right. And you're how old now?
27.
27, because I don't want people to be like, is he 23? No, you're 27 now. So
he's going to die here now.
So you made it.
He's made it.
I made
you
it.
made it.
I made it. And I always found that, like, my mom's very spiritual, and I always found that, like, a cool little weird thing that she was like, if he just gets to 24, like, I feel like she would say it to me.
Yeah.
Does your mom like crystals?
Crystals?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably.
Really? Oh. Yeah, you should ask her.
Wait, did you look? Was there crystals on the table? Because you looked right next to it.
I don't know. I'd look.
Yeah, there's a crystal. There's crystals literally all over
There's
the
a lot of
office.
crystals. There's a lot.
We're, very
crystal.
spiritual.
I don't know. I don't have a single
witchy.
crystal in my room. I don't think in my office.
Oh my
you
goodness.
need to put at
I
least
know,
one in
guys.
there.
I need to get a crystal in there.
Oh my
I
god.
know.
Oh, I have to give you the present that I got for you. Total aside.
Okay.
It's in celebration of what we talked about last time with with the package you delivered.
What package did I deliver?
In your "What Should I Wear" video.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, what? My head is. Yeah, I get it.
It's a planter,
there.
like a pot, like a wiener pot.
Oh my god!
Wow.
It's gonna be good.
Oh my god! So don't open that in what's called online.
Oh yeah, we can't show that
good.
online.
Good, that's good.
If you want to see it, come to our office.
Yeah,
See it.
please don't. Oh my god! So I feel like I'm just like fascinated by your story, because it's just. I don't know. I mean, I guess I've talked to a lot of people going into social work or becoming clinicians and therapists, and it's not often that, like, for the most part, everyone has a story of why they got there, and it's usually a personal story. It's not like I don't often, and I don't know that I want a therapist. I see a therapist myself, and I don't know that I'd want a therapist who's like without any trauma, right? Who's been like, actually, life was pretty easy. You know, like I want them to be able to be empathetic because maybe they've shared some similar experiences. So I think it's great that I've had so many clients specifically that maybe you referred or what have you, that they have said, I feel like I'm sitting across from someone who's not taking notes so that it goes part of their dissertation, or that it's like an even or level playing field, that like they feel like, you know, someone, what we always say that like you're one situation or you're one situation away from being in the same position as your client. I'm like, I've been in that situation. I'm in that situation some weeks, you know what I mean? Like, baby, we're here together.
Right.
So I think it's great that, you know, you can relate to clients, and it's something that I think things that have happened or that you've experienced only makes you a better clinician, I think.
Oh, thank you.
And I think with Seth, like a lot of his symptoms were so externalized that to me it's like such a drastic contrast from where you started. But there's also like plenty of people who were suffering just as much. You just can't like see it.
Oh, for sure.
But for me, like, well, I always think of myself as like 23 still. So that's when I started doing what I do. But like now sitting here, like having to realize like you were 18 when we met and you're 27 and about to be working as a therapist, like it is really cool to see people come
like
full circle. Like I've been practicing long enough that like my high school kids are therapists.
Yeah.
You know, and like we'll probably share clients, which is like wild, right?
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah. That's
I
like
love that. The circle of life, but the circle of therapy. The circle of mental health.
Yeah. Well, and you did 2 of your internships, right? One at the hospital where you were in rehab, and one
with my the therapist I saw and their IOP, and I also interned at the rehab that I went to when I was 18, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
And with your exposure and response prevention therapist, you did some
I did
summer
my
stuff,
undergrad stuff with him as well. So I did. I and now we're doing this together. So
You've gone full circle with almost everything.
Seth
with all of my clinicians.
Yeah.
He's a fan favorite.
I was going to say, you're like their shining star.
Like I said, I feel like it's because like we all were looking at each other like, what the fuck are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even if you would have told me like that day I met you in my office that we'd be sitting here and you're like about to be a therapist, I think I would have been like, I'm good, but maybe not that good.
It's like the Paul Rudd meme. It's like, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Not me. Yeah.
I mean, I just, all I remember is like, if I can't get my colleague to agree to this, like I quit because I can't do it myself.
It's such a stigma, and like I said, like I'm glad that you both brought that up, because it is something that I hope that more clinicians and therapists like kind of can get past that, and you know, be able to see substance bonding is what we would call it at Westchester. I don't know if you were ever in a class that called it substance bonding, but that it's something that I'm glad that I was, when I was in my internship, doing, you know, my clinical rotation, they're like, yep, this will be your first one, like, and I was like, what if I fuck up? And it was amazing.
Well, I've always said I don't like working with substance use, and it's just because like I don't feel comfortable treating it like by myself. So I see clients with substance use, but I make sure we have someone else like in the mix that's working on the substance use end. So and that's kind of like what you did, right? Like your exposure and response prevention was over here and the alcohol treatment was over here. But at some point you needed both, or, you know, both together, really.
Yeah. It's a holistic approach for sure.
So it's just like a willingness to see people from diverse backgrounds and just like help them get the services that they need for that like full picture.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing that happened was throughout my life, I always, not always, but I a lot of the time I felt not judged for what I had, which was crazy. When I tell people that, they're like, what are you talking about? Because it was so debilitating, and I was good at making jokes and making fun of myself enough to like make people laugh, and then the joke's like,
if you make the joke first, then
you would sing.
I sang and I play music and sing, and
and you don't have tics when you sing. Did you know that?
You don't have tics. You don't stutter.
Brain, right? Yeah. I found that also very interesting. I love like CrossFit and stuff, and I was in sports. I always had like support and the friends.
That's great.
But also the people that, especially when it came to recovery and stuff, like those people, and then my clinicians, like it was always because of people that have been through it, and like the best thing I ever heard was like me too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had therapists saying like, it'll be okay, like trust me, like if you do this, we've seen it and you have to trust us. And I had people in program being like, oh, I've literally been there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Your thoughts, your fears, your wants, your desires, your issues, everything. Me too. And this is what I've done. So if you do this, it'll get better. And so like I always had the direction in front of me. And I think that's the blessing that like I was given, is like I always had the direction in front of me, and I had to like, unfortunately or fortunately, suffer enough to like take the direction or take the suggestions. And it's like, it's all like, this is only a result of like the people before me, or the people that have cared about me. And I have been so blessed to have a lot of people, clinicians, and also many of like men and women in like the program, and my family, like my parents. Like, I mean, there's nothing, the amount of like time and money and support that they had to go through to even like not like beat me. You know what I mean? Like, jokingly, like not just like give up on me. I mean, I have no clue. It's something I'll never be able to pay back with physical things. I have to just keep trying to be there as a son. But yeah, like I was so lucky to have like parents like that, and friends like that, and people in recovery that just, that whole program is just so incredible with not giving up and just being, regardless how, just always there. And then clinicians that just are diligent and caring. And so it's only as a result of like all of you and like this whole deal and people.
And an understanding that, with substance abuse or bonding, there's an underlying cause for it. It's not that someone, like, no completely happy and someone without zero mental health issue is bonding to substances just willy-nilly. There's reasoning behind it. And so I think that when we have a combination of understanding there's a reason behind the substance, and having a system of people who are supportive and understanding of that is fantastic. Because when we have all, like, again, the holistic approach to it, then we can figure out the best course of action to truly help the person in realizing they don't need to be bonding to that there are other methods and ways to feeling, better and getting back onto your like equilibrium for sure.
Oh my gosh,
yeah. And I mean, that's gonna shape the kind of clinician you are for everyone else. So like the cycle keeps going, right? Like people who've been through stuff shaped you, helped you. Now you're gonna be in that position, shaping, helping other people. Someday, hopefully, you'll be sitting next to a client you've been seeing for 9 years and, celebrating their achievements too.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you for coming in and doing this for us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Absolutely. This was
Do you have any
fun.
final words?
No, just.
Do you want to sing us a song?
I wish I didn't bring my guitar.
Are you on The Masked Singer with Kate Middleton?
I will keep that to myself.
Okay, I got that. I knew it. I cannot wait for you to do Wonderwall.
You think I would pick that? Come on.
No, it's like. Anyways, here's closing time.
I'll do all the cliches.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We really like Chasing Cars here because Grey's Anatomy.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Chasing
really
Cars
emotional.
is like.
It's like border cliche.
It's border cliche,
Yeah.
but it's good enough.
I feel like if you sat here singing Chasing Cars right now, I'd for sure cry.
Oh, wow.
Do you think?
Here's Chasing Cars. Thanks, ever. No. Oh my God. All right. Well, let's wrap this mother up. Thanks for joining us, Seth, and thank you for you two facilitating this.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your story. Not a lot of people are willing to, talk so openly, and you're the first patient I've actually ever publicly talked with. So it's pretty
Oh, wow.
cool.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
I know.
awesome, yeah.
There he is, being the favorite again.
Favorite.
Yeah, jeez.
Crowd
Always
favorite.
with everyone.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Absolutely.
listening, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Come back with your guitar.
I
Maybe
will.
you can
I will.
record like our intro.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
love to.
Yeah.
Write us a jingle.
I could do
A jingle jangle moment.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Jingle.
maybe there'll be a
What?
jingle at the end of this, guys.
Yeah.
Maybe there will.
Wow.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. We'll see you next week to spill more of your TheraTea, and write comments on what you want. If you have any questions, we'll make Seth go through them and he can answer them.
Yeah,
for you.
lucky for
of
him,
course.
he's still
Yeah.
stuck with me. So
Still stuck.
Yes.
All right, friends.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.